I think it goes without saying that many questioned just how a crossover would go with Disney and Square. Well, we got the beloved Kingdom Hearts. But how does the first game fare? Well, let's dive into it. The game itself has a rather interesting behind the scenes, as the company Squaresoft, now of course known as Square Enix, were having some troubles. Sure, they had big hit titles like the Final Fantasy games, but they were struggling financially. They had a lot of projects that did not work out, most notably the infamous Final Fantasy Spirits Within movie. This also put a strain on the potential merger between Squaresoft and Enix. Sony then came in, buying a stake in the company, which made sure the games would be exclusive for a few years. Then, seeing the direction games were going, plus seeing the success of Super Mario 64, executive Shinji Hashimoto and Final Fantasy series creator Sakaguchi had talks about creating such a game. The only issue here was that they felt the only company that had characters that could reach a mass audience was Disney. Overhearing all of this was Final Fantasy character designer Tatsuya Nomura, who volunteered to create the project. In a twist, it just so happened that Disney Japan and Square shared an office building. This leads to the famous elevator encounter with Hashimoto and a Disney executive, which allowed him to pitch the idea. One of the points of contention was who the protagonist should be in the game. Originally, Square wanted Donald Duck, while Disney wanted Mickey Mouse. In the end, Nomura made an original character which would make all parties agree. Something about this part in particular is really interesting. Can you imagine how different it would be if it was someone else as the protag? Who knows, honestly. So the development of the game began. It had its appearances in trailers, and there was a lot of hype for it since the concept was intriguing to many. On March 28, 2002, the game came out in Japan on the PS2, and it was a massive success, with releases around the world arriving later in that same year. One noteworthy story, however, is when the game was re-released in 2013 as part of the 1.5 collection. Due to how certain companies were in the late 90s and early 2000s, some game source codes were lost, and Kingdom Hearts 1 happened to be one of them. In order to bring the game back, the dev team had to essentially reverse engineer and recreate everything, which was not an easy process. Also, one great part about the re-release is that now everyone can play the final mix version of the game. For a long time, the final mix version was only released in Japan, so it was a big deal having them playable, as this version added new content like bosses, new abilities, and so on. That is the behind the scenes of the game, so let's get into the game itself. Note that this will be the PS4 final mix version of the game. The game is an action role-playing game set in its own universe, though it is the start of the series, so it's very important that if one wants to start the series, this would be the point to begin, otherwise certain information will not make sense. I know that might sound like a meme, but if there is one thing I know about Kingdom Hearts, it just has a lot of information to remember. The story of the game starts out with you playing as Sora, a boy living on Destiny Islands who is experiencing a dream where he's confronted with choices of what he wants to keep and lose. Along the way, he will also meet Final Fantasy characters Wakka, Tidus, and Selphie, who also give him choices in dialogue. This serves as part of the game's tutorial as Sora fights off shadows known as Heartless, including the large one known as Darkseid. After this, he awakens from his dream where he talks with childhood friends Riku and Kairi. They all want to build a raft to explore the other worlds. After some minigames and fetching stuff, the night before they leave arrives when suddenly the island is under attack. The island is being attacked by the Heartless, and while this is happening, Riku tries to get Sora to join him in the darkness, but in the end, he disappears, while Sora gets chosen to wield the Keyblade. Sora goes to the secret cave where he finds Kairi, and they both get blasted away from the islands by the darkness. This also means that the islands are destroyed. In the meantime, King Mickey over at Disney Castle left instructions for Donald and Goofy to find the one who wields the Keyblade. They end up going to Traverse Town, which is also the world that Sora ended up at. Sora ends up running into more Final Fantasy characters like Sid, Leon, Yuffie, and Aerith. He is then told about how important the Keyblade is when it comes to taking out the Heartless, plus some other info like being told about someone named Ansem. This is also being told to Donald and Goofy, as when roaming around the town, Aerith found them. Sora, Donald, and Goofy all meet up to take down Big Heartless, and after doing so, they decide to team up and go explore the other worlds to find their friends. Seeing this is the first game in a large series, it's safe to say that the story is fun for what it is, finding friends, getting more powerful, and stopping the bad guys. A classic clash between light and darkness. What I really enjoy is that it's a fun journey, filled with feels, moments, and memes along the way. Most of the game's story is explained during cutscenes, and if you want extra information, there is the journal which you can read. Of course, the Kingdom Hearts story is original, and while one doesn't 100% need to know anything from Square Games or Disney, it does help if one knows a little bit, since it can provide context on some stuff like character traits. I must admit though, it is amusing seeing certain characters interact with each other even though no one would expect it. Plus, considering at the time this was an early PS2 title, they got a lot out of the hardware. Now let's get into the gameplay of Kingdom Hearts. In the game, your main objective will be exploring worlds, both original and Disney, to solve whatever the issue is. Usually you will be accompanied with a Disney character who you can switch in and out of the party. The worlds also have a keyhole which needs to be sealed. Something that is interesting is that even though there are a lot of worlds to explore, a few of them are optional, like Atlantica. Though the reason why some may not like exploring the worlds is because Kingdom Hearts 1 worlds have a few things that some either love or do not like. The the first being no map. Combining no map and with the fact that some worlds have you turn around a lot can make exploring a little rough. There are some ways that this can be made a little easier, like talking to people, and then sometimes it is better to explore even the smallest of things like objects. Some areas you have to examine something in order for it to move. The best cue, however, is when something moves or when a cutscene takes place, something changed in the world letting you continue. Another indicator is the dialogue that characters may say, so at least there are ways of finding out where to go next. I must admit that as one who has played the first game a few times, it was the first run of the game which was rough when it came to exploring worlds, because it felt like with no map, it was like doing a puzzle. After playing it a few times, I love going through the worlds. It gave this feeling of a nice place to explore with hidden stuff that one may not find right away. There is some optional stuff you can do, but we will get to that later. So while it might not sound like the greatest at first, patience will prevail. Some of the worlds, by the way, are really cool, so I would recommend checking all of them out. Plus, you get stuff when going through the worlds like items and chests, new keyblades, new magic spells, and summons. This leads to the combat of the game. The combat has action RPG with hack and slash gameplay. To start out, you actually get a choice at the beginning of the game to decide what growth style you want. This comes in the form of choosing between either the sword, shield, or rod. Might sound like a lot, but really all this is doing is mainly choosing which abilities you get at certain level ups. This then leads to the actual fighting of the game where you fight against the Heartless. With it being an RPG, it is numbers based, so there are levels in the game. You get experience points by taking out the Heartless. When you level up, you get increased stats and sometimes a new ability. The abilities in the game are varied, but some are better than others. The key note, however, is that when you equip the abilities, you have AP points which are used up whenever equipping an ability. So checking the description is key in order to find out which ones are best to use in combat. Saying this, however, once an ability is equipped, you can remove it and try out different ones, so no worries on that. There are a few in the game that do not take up AP. These ones are known as shared abilities, which can help you do stuff like gliding. The main abilities that will help out are the ones that do extra moves in combat, like dodging and blocking, since they will help you escape any potential damage. Another way you can dodge attacks is by jumping, and oh gosh, the jumping. In this game, the jumping is interesting as you can attack while in midair, but the other part about jumping is the platforming. All I can say about the platforming is patience and time will work out in the end. Even if it seems rough, jumping is important if you want to get better at the combat. There are some fights where if you jump and attack at the right time, you can prevent the enemy from attacking, so jumping is good. When fighting the Heartless, you have your basic attack command, which has Sora using the Keyblade to swing at them. Once their HP is down, they get destroyed. As I mentioned earlier, if you have abilities, you can combo them to do some nice damage. Locking onto enemies is something that will assist you in this. Magic is also in the game, and throughout you obtain lots of spells like fire, thunder, ice, and etc. These can help in certain situations and if you want to attack from range. Cure is a nice spell to have since it's the best way to heal. Just as a small tip, if you like attacking, then arrow magic will be your best friend since it reduces damage taken and can hurt the enemy if close. Whenever you use a spell, you deplete magic bars, and some take up more segments than others. There are ways to get magic back during combat, but the most common way is to hit enemies. Only thing is that if you are low on health, it might be a big risk. When it comes to actually using the magic, it boils down to finding it in the magic menu and then hitting the button. But something Kingdom Hearts did was adding shortcut menus. In the menu, you can add a shortcut, which means in combat, all you have to do is hold down the shoulder button and press the button which you assigned the spell to. This helps keep the combat going at a nice pace while also cutting down a few seconds going to the menus to find that specific spell. Think about it this way, if you can heal just before a large attack arrives in a few seconds, it can save the fight type of deal. Magic can also be used to do stronger physical attacks. If you have the equipped ability and enough magic bars, you can use the ability whenever it shows up above the command menu. Another way of healing is using the items. In the menus, you can assign items into your inventory to be used in combat. These are nice as they do not take up magic bars and you can pick them up if enemies drop them. Healing can also happen whenever you pick up healing orbs from defeated enemies. If you're in a dire situation and cannot heal fast enough, Donald can also heal you. The only issue with this is that he has to have magic available. You can equip Donald and Goofy with items, but this is more of a preference thing for the player when playing. Considering you can get a lot of magic and it only uses one bar to cure, plus Leaf Bracer being a thing makes magic a nice choice for healing. The last option in the command menu are summons. In order to use them, you have to have party members alive and magic available. When you use it, you get a cool animation and then you can use them. Throughout the game, you get a bunch of them and they all have different uses in combat. Some of them attack and others can heal you. My favorite one by far is Tinkerbell, who, when summoned, gives you regen and can save you from death. Can be really clutch during certain fights in the game. One noteworthy thing is that some of them are obtained through summon gems. If you take them to Merlin, he can make them usable. I gotta say, I am amazed I did not use them much before. These can be really helpful. I have mentioned what Sora can do in combat, but what do the party members do during fights? The party members do their own thing. Yes, you do not control them. This might sound bad at first, but they are more support if anything. They will take out enemies and heal you, but most of the time you'll be thinking about what to do as Sora. Be prepared though to hear their many noises in combat because they can yell loud. In certain worlds, you will get a different party member that's associated in that world. They have their own abilities to use, but the main thing with them is that you can only have 2 members with Sora at a time, so whenever you're at a save point or if the situation arises, you could switch between them. Earlier I've mentioned how abilities help out in combat. This is the case with the party members as well. Some of these support abilities can help out, so checking them whenever they level up will be useful. Oh, and I should note this because it might be something you may or may not know. Yes, you can change the AI behavior for the party members. That is the combat of the game, but before even getting to the fights, there is the equipment that you can use. Throughout the game you will get new weapons to equip, and some of them are better than others. Best way to know this is by the stats, like which ones give more strength or magic. Along with the weapons we have the accessories. These also help out with stat boosting, but some of them have a passive effect. The XP accessories, as an example, can give you more experience when defeating enemies. The best part about these, by the way, is that you can stack them, which means you can get a lot more than normal. One way you can get these is by going to the shop in Traverse Town, and if you have enough money, you can buy it. If you're one who likes to collect, there's also synthesis, which is basically getting materials so you can combine them to make an item. There are some cool items in here that you can get, though it might take a while to get them. But if you're one who wants to get the best stuff, this is another way to get it. When traveling from world to world, you'll be using the gummy ship, which in this game is a straight line, taking out ships and any other obstacles along the way. If you take too much damage, then you'll have to restart. While I can give them credit for trying to vary up with each destination, the gummy ship segments sadly are not the best. They can be fun if one has a really strong ship, which means you can take out everything quick, but even then it's not the most engaging thing in the world. There are missions you can do with the gummy ship, but honestly, it speaks volumes they can actually go through the whole game without ever upgrading it. Since it is the case, you can just avoid everything that tries to get you. While there is the main story, there is also extras and side stuff you can do in the game. First are the Dalmatians. Throughout the worlds there are some chests you can open, and if you open the right ones, you can find them. When you find them, you take them to the home in Traverse Town and you get a reward. The more you get, the better rewards, and they are nice. They also are in threes, so when you realize there are 99 of them, it's not as bad as one may think. Something that also comes into play when getting Dalmatians are the Trinities. During the game, you'll find certain spots in worlds where if you have the certain power, you can unlock the Trinities. By doing this, you can get various stuff, including the before mentioned Dalmatians. One item in the game you can get are the Torn Pages. These pages help you advance the 100 Acre Wood world, which is mainly filled with doing minigames. Plus, you get to be with Pooh and friends, so that's pretty neat. Another thing you can do is the Coliseum battles. This is basically a gauntlet where you fight enemies until you either win or lose. They are divided by cups, and the more you complete, the tougher they get. You might even encounter some familiar faces during these fights. The Coliseum is also another place you can get rewards like new Keyblades and magic. Last but not least are the secret fights in the game. I'm not going to show them here, as experiencing them speaks way more than me showing them. Let's just say they are tough, but honestly, well worth it. At least one of them anyway. This game's soundtrack is just amazing. The production they put into the soundtrack was very good, especially since they got to combine original music, Disney theme music, and even a little bit of Final Fantasy. The main composer is Yoko Shimomura, who even before this game originally came out, she made a name for herself in games like Street Fighter 2, Live Alive, Super Mario RPG, and more. But of course, one of the most famous parts about Kingdom Hearts is the Utada songs. Simple and Clean is the main one for this game, and it's always a joy to listen to. It's safe to say that Kingdom Hearts 1 is a great game. Yes, there are certain things that could have been better, like having a map, but considering this was a 2002 game originally on PS2, it broke ground on so many levels. The fact there was a crossover between two big franchises, the gameplay being as solid as it is, and the story having its charms, who would have thought an unexpected crossover would turn out so well. Just want to say thank you all for watching the video. If you like this video and want to see more, check out the other videos on the channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.